To dress the Grayling witch, I'm using a hook size 16. For the tag, I'm using a couple of strands of red floss. For the body, I'm using a single strand of green peacock herl. For the rib, I'm using a flat silver tinsel. In this case, I'm using silver lurex. For the hackle, I'm using a blue dun cock saddle hackle. Now to dress the fly, I simply come in with my fly tying thread and I catch it in directly behind the eye of the hook with 6 or 7 nice tight turns. Cut off the excess thread, and now I prepare my red floss. Simply trim the tips so they're even, and I start to mount them on the hook with 3 loose turns of thread. Now, keeping an even tension on the thread, I just pull that floss backwards away from the eye of the hook. Again, catch it in with 6 or 7 nice turns of thread, and now I come in with my lurex tinsel and again catch that in with another 6 or 7 turns of thread. Now, taking my single strand of peacock herl, I just trim off that brittle end and again mount it onto the hook with 6 or 7 nice tight turns of thread. And you can see with the mounting of each material, I'm slowly progressing down the hook shank. Now, once you're happy with the length of the body, come with your tying thread, bring the thread back up the hook shank in nice tight touching turns, and you want to finish probably 3 or 4 turns of thread just behind the eye. Now take your peacock herl and bring it back up the hook shank in nice even turns. And it's important here that you don't twist, you just keep wrapping it in a nice symmetrical turn. And you want to finish your peacock herl body roughly 2 or 3 wraps behind the hook. That one's just slipped out, so I'm going to redo that one again. 1, 2, and there we go. Now, taking the thread, just bind it down with 2 nice tight turns on top and another turn in front. Trim off the waist end of herl and now we mount our blue dun saddle hackle. Take your fly tying thread and really bind it down with 6 or 7 nice tight turns so it's not going to move on you. Trim off the tip. I'll take another turn there. And now, taking your hackle in your hackle pliers, take your one initial turn right in front of that peacock herl body. There we go. And now simply palmer the hackle down the body of the fly in nice symmetrical open turns. I'll take one more right at the back of the body. There we go. Now taking the lurex in your hackle pliers or in your fingers if you can, trap down that last turn of hackle. Ooh. This lurex is pretty slippy. I think I need a new pair of hackle pliers. There we go. And you just catch down that last wrap of hackle. And now, in symmetrical open turns, you bring your tinsel back up the fly body to the eye of the hook. You're going to crush a few hackle barbs, but it doesn't really matter. And now come in with your tying thread and catch it down with two nice tight turns, and I'll take one more in front. Trim off the waste end of tinsel with your scissors. Now come in and cut the waste end of hackle, and now trim the tag end to the length you require. That's looking quite good. If you've got a few fibres, you can just ease them out of the way, and now with your whip finish tool form a nice, neat, tight whip finish. Tighten her up, come with your scissors, cut the thread, and now trim any stray hackle fibres that you have. Ping it with your fingernail, and there you have Roger Woolley's Grayling Witch. To dress the Grayling steel blue, I'm using a size 16 hook. For the thread, I'm using orange 8/0 uni. For the tip, I'm going to take 3 turns of silver tinsel. Here I'm using silver lurex. For the body, a single strand of peacock herl. For the rib, I'm using a fine gold wire. And for the hackle, I'm using a cock blue dun saddle hackle. Now to start the fly, simply come in with your fly tying thread and trap it down with 6 or 7 nice tight turns of thread. Trim off the waste end. And now we're mounting our lurex tinsel with some nice tight turns of thread, bringing the thread down the hook shank to a point just past the point of the hook. Now taking the tinsel and the fingers, just form a nice small silver tag to the fly. Once you're happy with that, just trap it down with 3 turns of thread. And now, using your thread, build another tag in front of the original silver tag. Something like that. Now we come in with our fine gold wire. We trap that down. Again, 6 or 7 nice tight turns of thread. Now we prepare our peacock curl. Simply snip off the brittle end and we now mount this in with tight turns of thread, bringing our thread back up the hook shank to a point where our body's going to finish. And now to form the body, just take your peacock curl and wrap it in nice symmetrical turns, taking care not to twist the herl. And you can see there I've now got a distinctive silver and orange tag to the fly. So keep bringing your herl back up the hook shank, and you can see it's forming a nice hurled bodied fly. And then when you're about 2 wraps away from the eye of the hook, trap that herl down with a couple of nice tight turns of thread. And just for good measure, I'll put one right in front. Take your scissors and trim off the herl. And now we take our blue dun saddle hackle and we mount it onto the hook. And you really want to take really nice tight turns so it doesn't budge. Trim off the hackle stalk and any stray fibres you have. And now taking your hackle in your hackle pliers, take one full turn of hackle immediately in front of that peacock herl body. And now we palmer our hackle down the body of the fly. This pattern is more densely hackled than the previous one, so we don't do it in such glaring open turns. We just keep them reasonably tight. We take one more turn there. And now come in with my gold wire and I trap down that first turn of hackle, like so. And now I bring my wire back up the body of the fly in between those hackle wraps. You're going to trap a few, but it doesn't really matter. And you bring your wire right to the front where your fly tying thread's waiting for you. Now bring your thread and just trap that down with 2 or 3 nice tight turns. There we go. Once you've got it secure, you can just fret it off with your fingers. Now come in with your scissors, Trim off the waste end of hackle. Clean off any hackle fibres in front of the eye. One there. And now come in with your whip finish tool and take 3 or 4 turns of nice tight whip finish. Pull it tight there. Trim off your thread. Give the fly a ping with your fingernail. And there you have Roger Woolley's Grayling Steel Blue.